Pulverize Druid. There are a ton of guides out there, but most of them are endgame. And the comments that I keep seeing reoccurring is I am struggling with the damage, with the werebear, and it feels like I'm just not doing any damage. You could see my bear going absolutely ham here in Nightmare Tier 17. And no, this game footage is not sped up. You can tell by the cooldown counters on the bottom. So if you are struggling in this video, I'm going to break it down a little bit, and hopefully by the end of the video, you'll have a much better understanding of how to play this build, and it'll be a lot more fun for you. So right now there are a ton of guides out there, especially on the Pulverized Bear, but a lot of them are endgame, and if you aren't still leveling, I have some tips that I found to be useful. Hopefully that'll help you. The comment that I keep seeing a lot is people are struggling with damage, more specifically not doing enough damage. So I want to dive into this and let you know what has worked for me, what I'm finding useful, and a quick disclaimer, this by no means is the absolute best. This video is not meant to show off, it's simply meant to be helpful if you are struggling, so I'm going to tell you what's working for me. For this build, we're going to start with the most important item, and that is going to be the weapon. For this build, you want to use a two-handed weapon, something like an axe, and what you are looking for primarily, at least while you are leveling, is damage to healthy enemies. As you can see, I have plus 60% damage to healthy enemies, plus another 46.5% damage to close enemies. Then we have critical strike damage, then we have overpower. While you are leveling, we don't necessarily need to focus too much on overpower, because overpower does a ton of damage on its own. But what we want to do is we want to one-shot the enemies, and that is where the damage to healthy enemies comes in. And for this, you need a two-handed legendary weapon. Now, the absolute best aspect I found to use is Pulverize creates a shockwave that travels forward, dealing up to 200% of its damage to the targets in the path, and that is really, really good for clearing lots of mobs. I am level 71 currently, and unfortunately I have only gotten one of these aspects dropped, so I am farming another one to upgrade my weapon. I do have a much better weapon waiting for me, but I can't find the aspect that I need. So if you're not using this aspect with the shockwave on it, that is gimping your damage. In my opinion, this is absolutely a must. So once you've got your weapon, what next? The next thing you can absolutely do is focus on your necklace. Right now, I have been experimenting with basic skills, gain 41% attack speed. If you are finding yourself struggling with resource generation with Spirit, go ahead and try using an increased attack speed, and you can imprint this anywhere. If you put it on your necklace, it will actually give you a 50% bonus, so your basic skills will attack much faster. Now, do you need this? You don't absolutely need this. I am currently experimenting with this. So from here, there are a couple of things you can do. If you find yourself dying quite a bit, you can focus on barrier. One of the best, absolute best things to get is this barrier aspect. Damaging elite enemies will grant you a lot of barrier for 10 seconds. As you could see, my barrier rolled on the high end, absolutely on the high end, so I'm really loving this right now. If you find yourself struggling, the next thing that you can do is, if you find yourself dying a lot, is use another aspect. Basic skills grant 20% damage reduction for 5 seconds. That will help you to stay alive. On your pants, you want armor, nothing too fancy there. And if you find yourself still dying, go ahead and imprint your barrier on the necklace. That should give you 50% boost, and it'll give you a much higher barrier. If you are finding yourself doing pretty good in the survivability department, and that of course will come down to the skill of your gameplay and how much dodging that you can do. So if you're finding your survivability really good, but you're just not doing enough damage, or if you are struggling with Spirit, there's a couple of things that you can do here as well. The very first thing you can do is, if you are struggling with resource generation, go ahead and find yourself a basic skills, gain 41% to attack speed. That goes all the way up to 45 at my current level. If you put it on the necklace, you gain plus 50% to that, and that'll help you with resource generation, and that is what I'm using. So then you can spam your core skills, which was going to be Pulverize. Speaking of Pulverize, if you take a look at my ring, critical strikes with core skills increase attack speed by 25%. So the combination of the increased attack on the basic skills, which is giving us a lot of resource, and critical strikes with core skills increasing our attack speed, he goes absolutely berserk, and I'm really, really enjoying this right now. One thing of note here, for me to be able to use this increased attack speed on basic skills, I did have to give up an aspect. There are a couple of aspects that you can use on your amulet. One of them being you deal 25% increased damage while you have barrier active. That should help a lot. And as you could see on an amulet, your power is increased by 50%. The other aspect that I have been experimenting on is when you fortify, your earth skills gain +2 ranks. That one I found to be very, very good, but not as good as the damage increase while you have barrier active. And since we are using an increased attack speed on our necklace, one of the aspects I did give up is Trample now summons 6 landslides, which of course reduces my damage a little bit because Trample no longer summons landslides. So go ahead and experiment with that. If you find yourself attacking really, really slow because of the two-hander, because of the slow two-hander we're using, and if you're just finding him attacking extremely slow and you are struggling with Spirit, go ahead and try out the increased attack speed on the necklace. That'll work out really well. And as mentioned previously, if you are struggling to survive, go ahead and use a barrier on the amulet as well. As you can see, if I imprint this one, that should give me somewhere around 5,000 barrier, which is pretty big, stacking on top of my life. So there are different ways for different playstyles, and you have to find what works for you. So just to recap, for this build, you will need a legendary two-hand weapon with primarily damage to healthy enemies. The idea here is to one-shot everything. The aspect you will need is the Pulverize Shockwave that travels forward and deals 200% of its damage to targets in the path. That is the primary thing you are going to be needing. Then depending on if you are struggling to survive, you are going to want to imprint either a barrier aspect on your amulet to help you survive, or if you are finding yourself struggling with attack speed or resource generation, you are going to want to imprint increased attack skills from your basic skills, and of course critical strikes with core skills increase your attack speed by 25%, and with these two aspects you will be an unstoppable killing machine. If you don't like the increased attack speed and you want to one-shot everything, you can always imprint the legendary aspect to deal 25% more increased damage while you have barrier active, and if you put that on your necklace, you will get somewhere around 38% damage increase, which is going to be really, really nice. So now you can one-shot everything. And if you are looking for even more AoE, you can try out Trample, now summons 6 landslides, which deals 80% of normal damage, and that'll help you clear trash mobs. And one final thing to note here, for this build to work really, really well, damage from earth skills slows enemies. That is what we want to get. And then of course, because we are now slowing enemies, which is considered a crowd control skill, we also want the aspect where earth skills deal 40% more critical strike damage to crowd control enemies, and that'll pair up really, really nice. So there you have it. You have lots of different choices depending on what you are struggling with. If you found value in this video, do me a huge favor, hit the like and the subscribe, and also leave me a nice comment down below. And for more BearCozy videos, check out the top right.